On a cold February day in suburban Wisconsin, deputies stepped into a quiet family home and immediately knew something was terribly wrong. Inside, they found two adults dead beneath layers of blankets. The rooms appeared ransacked. A handgun was missing, and the couple's 17-year-old son, Nikita Cassap, had vanished along with a vehicle and the family dog. At first, investigators could not tell whether the teenager had been abducted, had fled from danger, or was connected to the deaths. Then a minor traffic violation hundreds of miles away led police to a car filled with cash, jewelry, electronics, a gun, family documents, and a camera holding deeply disturbing evidence. But even that discovery was only the beginning. Behind the double homicide was an alleged political plot, online extremist contacts, and a question that would follow the case into court. How did a high-achieving teenager from a caring home reach this point? The investigation began after Nikita's grandmother reported that he had stopped attending school. The school district raised the same concern. She had also been receiving unusual messages that appeared to come from Nikita's stepfather, Donald Mayer. Donald claimed he was sick, but the explanations kept changing, and he avoided speaking by phone. What sounded like an ordinary illness began to feel increasingly suspicious. On February 28, 2025, investigators entered the residence. Tatiana, Nikita's mother, had been shot multiple times and covered with blankets and towels. Donald was found near a small office area, also concealed beneath fabric. Candles nearby appeared to have been used earlier. The condition of the scene suggested the deaths had occurred well before police arrived. The disorder inside created another mystery. Clothing covered floors. Beds and closets had been pulled apart. Paperwork was scattered through an upstairs study. Investigators initially considered burglary, especially after finding documents connected to a handgun but no gun. They searched piles of clothing and blankets, worried that Nikita, or even the dog, might be another victim hidden inside. No third body was found. The teenager's unexplained absence forced deputies to treat the quiet residence as both a homicide scene and an urgent missing person case. The family's life had not looked unstable from the outside. Nikita and his mother were originally from Moldova. After Tatiana married Donald, they moved to the United States in 2017. Donald treated Nikita like a son, and the teenager appeared to thrive academically. He lived in a comfortable neighborhood, earned strong grades, joined school activities, studied cybersecurity, and talked about pursuing STEM field after graduation. That normal image made the silence more alarming. Nikita had previously maintained excellent attendance, but February 11th was the last day he appeared at school. When teachers contacted him, messages said he was ill. They requested a call from a parent, but none came. Donald's employer received similar written excuses. When his boss asked to speak directly, the messages claimed Donald had lost his voice. Neighboring cameras helped investigators determine when the family vehicles had last moved, narrowing the likely timeline. Police now faced two possibilities. Nikita was in danger, or Nikita was the person they needed to find. One family vehicle was missing, and emergency phone location data traced movement south through Illinois, west through Iowa, and across several states toward Kansas. The route looked less like a panicked escape than an extended road trip. Nikita, who did not have a driver's license, even stopped at a massive truck stop in Iowa. The break came in Kansas. An officer watched the vehicle roll through a stop sign and initiated a routine traffic stop. By then, Wisconsin authorities had entered the license plate as belonging to a suspected stolen vehicle. Had the stop happened earlier, before that alert was active, Nikita might have received a citation and continued driving. Instead, the traffic violation ended a search that had crossed much of the country. A warrant search of the car transformed the case. Officers found a .357 handgun, clothing carrying the odor of decomposition, more than $14,000 in cash, jewelry, electronics, cell phones, older computers, a Bible, birth certificates, and family photo albums. The dog was alive in the vehicle. The mixture of practical documents, valuables, personal keepsakes, and electronic devices suggested that Nikita had not simply left for a night. He appeared to have packed for a much larger departure. Investigators could not immediately know why each item had been chosen. Some looked useful for travel. Others, such as albums and family documents, seemed emotionally personal. Together, they suggested a teenager attempting to carry pieces of his old life into whatever he imagined would come next. Then investigators examined a memory card from one of the cameras. It contained images of Tatiana and Donald after their deaths, including the blankets and candle arrangements found inside the house. A recovered video also captured Nikita referring to Donald's decomposing body. The evidence indicated that he had remained in the residence for more than 2 weeks after the killings, apparently spending much of his time in the basement while the bodies remained on the main level. According to the investigators' reconstruction, Donald was killed first, and Tatiana was attacked after returning home, still wearing her winter coat. Nikita later pleaded guilty to intentionally killing both of them. What happened afterward was almost as difficult to understand. He sent messages that made it appear his mother and stepfather were still alive. He contacted school, impersonated Donald in communications with work and family, bought food, walked the dog, took out trash, and shoveled the driveway. From outside, the house continued to display small signs of ordinary life. Investigators believed the apparent burglary was largely staged by Nikita's own search for money and valuables. Pictures may have been removed from walls to look for hidden cash or a safe. Envelopes, jewelry, and electronics were gathered. For roughly 2 weeks, the home was not only a crime scene, it was also being searched and prepared for an escape. When detectives finally met Nikita, his calm manner seemed disconnected from the circumstances. He spoke politely about moving from Moldova, adjusting to life in America, his school clubs, strong grades, and plans for college. He ranked near the top of his class and had performed well in a regional cybersecurity competition. Yet investigators also found signs of social isolation. He appeared to have few close in-person friendships, while much of his social world existed online. A classmate identified only as Witness A provided an early warning investigators could not ignore. Before the killings, Nikita had discussed suicide and suggested that he might kill his parents first so they would not suffer afterward. When challenged, he reportedly backed away from the statement and said he lacked a gun. The same witness described his family life as positive, making the threat even harder to explain. She also told police about his interest in mass violence, killers, war footage, and increasingly extreme political material. The digital investigation revealed that Nikita was not merely viewing disturbing content. According to authorities, he had entered Telegram spaces connected to neo-Nazis and other anti-government extremists. Investigators believed those communities offered attention, belonging, and a sense of purpose to an isolated teenager. They also considered whether people online were exploiting him for money. But the evidence presented in the case did not remove his own responsibility for the decisions that followed. The case therefore presented two connected but distinct problems: the private choices of one teenager and the networked environment that reinforced them. Authorities were trying to determine who encouraged him, what promises had been made, and whether anyone else was preparing violence. The FBI joined the investigation and discovered that concerns about Nikita's online activity were not new. In 2023, his mother had contacted the Bureau, prompting an inquiry that did not produce enough evidence for charges. After the murders, however, devices and communications revealed what authorities described as a plan to attack the president using a weaponized drone. The alleged objective was not simply assassination. Investigators said Nikita believed the attack could help destabilize the government and accelerate a wider social collapse. His escape plan was equally revealing. Authorities believed he intended to leave the United States, hide in Ukraine or elsewhere in Eastern Europe, and eventually begin a new life. The cash, birth certificates, electronics, valuables, and family albums found in the car fit that interpretation. The plan may have been unrealistic, but investigators warned that extremist violence does not need every attempt to be sophisticated. A single successful act can still cause irreversible harm. Nikita was initially charged with 10 counts, including 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, a corpse-hiding charge, and theft-related offenses. Bail was set at $1 million. Later, he entered guilty pleas to both homicide counts. In exchange, the remaining counts were dismissed. The pleas guaranteed 2 life sentences, but left one critical issue for the judge: whether he could ever become eligible for release. The court was not deciding whether punishment was mandatory. Life sentences followed from the homicide pleas. The decision centered on future release, whether age and possible rehabilitation could ever outweigh the calculated nature and devastating consequences of the crimes. At sentencing, the prosecution emphasized planning, concealment, theft, and the willingness to kill 2 loving parents in service of a political objective. The defense emphasized that Nikita was 17, socially isolated, vulnerable to manipulation, and still developing. His attorneys also noted that after his arrest, he cooperated with federal investigators seeking information about the online figures involved. Family members and friends of Donald and Tatiana described the permanent damage caused by their deaths and asked the court to protect the community. Nikita addressed the judge himself. He apologized, acknowledged that his mother and stepfather had been kind and loving, and said there was no excuse for his actions. He described becoming consumed by hateful ideas and convincing himself that extreme violence was justified as part of a revolution or war. Crucially, he said he could not place the blame entirely on propaganda or the people who influenced him because he still had the ability to choose differently. The judge imposed 2 life sentences and ruled that Nikita would not be eligible for extended supervision. He will spend the rest of his life in prison. The decision closed the criminal case, but not the larger questions surrounding it. Online radicalization can exploit loneliness, reward anger, and make destructive beliefs feel like belonging. Yet influence and accountability can exist at the same time. Tatiana and Donald lost their lives through choices Nikita admitted were his own. This case is not simply a warning that dangerous communities exist online. It is a reminder that sudden isolation, violent obsessions, secret extremist contacts, and direct threats should never be dismissed as meaningless teenage behavior. The hardest question may be the one no courtroom can fully answer. What intervention taken earlier might have changed the outcome, and how can families, schools, and communities recognize that moment before it disappears?